Hi, I'm Vishant. I am part of the Youth for Asia team here at ADB. My role is as a project incubator, and I'm joined here today with Ehon. Ehon Chan is the executive director of MaGIC in Malaysia. Welcome, Ehon.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. Very excited to be in Manila, even though it's a short trip this time.
Nice. Ehon, as you know, we work a lot with young people, right? And you've worked a lot, of course, with social enterprises, and that's what you do. So, very curious to know, what, according to you, what role does the youth play in social entrepreneurship?
A lot of things. A couple of things that's pretty obvious is that the youth is the one who are going to be inheriting the future, right? And so a lot of decisions today has to involve them. That's the obvious one. But I guess the less obvious one, but the one that is very important as well, is that Asia, as well as all around the world, is very heavily youth and very young people centric. In Asia, about 1.1 billion people between the age of 10 to 25, 24, 25, which means that a lot of them are actually youth. So if they are the majority, or a significant group of people, it's pretty obvious that we have to include them in the development agenda. And so from there, one of the things that we need to start thinking about is how do we pioneer a new system that could work for them into the future. Capitalism worked for a while, but we know that capitalism also left out a whole group of people. So what's the system that's going to work for this youth into the future? And they have to start experimenting and doing the work now. We know that social entrepreneurship gives some of the answers towards a new system that's more inclusive. Is it the answer? We don't know. It needs a lot more investment and investigation and experimentation before we actually come to a conclusion of the ultimate answer.
In your experience, just has there been one or two sort of examples, or just one or two social enterprises that you think potentially could be the answer, if anything?
I'll give you one that I think grew really fast in Malaysia. So it's called the 100% Project. It's a crowdfunding platform for education. We know that education is a huge problem because it's such a complex thing, right? Whether it's direct education or indirect education, there's all sorts of gaps in between as well. So 100% Project was created as a crowdfunding platform for education. Nothing revolutionary, nothing crazy or out there. But the idea is that any teachers, any educators can upload any kind of projects, whether it's for a specific project or it's to fix roof, for example, on the platform. Within 4 months, they raised almost $500,000 ringgit to fund over 30 projects across the entire nation. And we talk about things from bringing kids on the virtual reality education tour, to fixing a roof in a small little island off the coast of Sabah in Borneo Island, because the roof has been leaking. And every time it rains and it leaks, the class has to be cancelled. So teachers upload a project to fix the roof, and within weeks they raised enough money to fix the roof. Now kids can go to school every day, rain or shine. And that's grow really fast, and hopefully they would eventually expand across the Southeast Asia countries.
Okay, wow. I want to try and connect something with the SDGs now. Just, can you tell us a bit about what does MaGIC do with the SDGs? Or how do you see social entrepreneurship connecting with that?
So a bit about MaGIC. So MaGIC has two separate arms, well, not separate, two arms. One is the entrepreneurship development side, looking at commercial startups and commercial enterprises. On the other side, we have the social entrepreneurship department. Our role is really to catalyze ecosystem for social entrepreneurship. We want it to become self-sustainable as well in the next 4 years. So there's no constant involvement, direct involvement from us. In terms of SDG, we don't have any kind of direct involvement in it. We are very well aware of it, very well educated on it. We have been involved in quite a few initiatives of the SDG. So we ran in partnership with another partner, we ran a workshop that gets young kids under the age of 10 excited about the SDG. So they hack on ideas for about half a day on how we can try to meet the SDGs. We have a very close partnership with UNICEF and various other UN agencies, and obviously then SDG will be pulled in as well. So there's no direct involvement per se, but we always try to align towards that direction.
Okay, wow. My next question, I mean, we are at ADB, right? So I have to ask you, just social entrepreneurship and ADB, where's the bridge? How can we connect a multilateral organization like ADB with a groundbreaking idea like social entrepreneurship?
I think that is, I think for banks in general, I'm not going to touch specifically on ADB because I definitely don't know ADB well enough. But I think that there's a huge movement of banks towards making it more relatable and more human as well. So, I mean, if you look at the history of banks, it grew out of the necessity for the people. It also then was the catalyst for the capitalism society and the system and so on and so forth. And it became this big, giant institution, right? And during the financial crisis, we keep talking about how the banks were too big to fail. But more and more, we start to realize that that whole capitalism system, you know, left out a whole bunch of people. And there's a lot of talks now, especially in ASEAN, around inclusive economy. If we want to move towards inclusive economy, capital is one big part of that. And obviously, inclusive economy also means SDGs is a big part of that as well. So how do we make capital more accessible to more people and more ideas, and connecting these ideas from grassroots to the capital and the people that they need to grow the idea, I think is a very important role. Is it an ADB's role? I'll leave it, you know, as a question. But I think that, you know, if more and more organizations can play the role of that connecting capital to people and ideas, we'll see a huge movement towards meeting SDG or any other development goals that we want to achieve.
Put down. One important player, I think, that again connects what you've just spoken about briefly and potentially ADB is the government. Right? And maybe if there's one suggestion, right, as someone who is closely connected with the government in Malaysia, as someone who works closely with the government, maybe if there's one suggestion that you want to give out to governments in Asia Pacific, how can they develop social entrepreneurship a lot more in their countries? What would that be?
Wow, it's a tough one. So that's really general. I might bring it back to be a bit more specific towards just a personal experience working in Malaysia. I always have this question in my head. In fact, one of the things I always ask my team saying that, yeah, you know, we should do this debate, can government change the world, you know? Is it an oxymoron, right? So my perspective is that government uses taxpayers' money, and government is able to absorb more risk. And when we talk about trying to pioneer a new system, trying to trailblaze a whole new ecosystem or sector or industry or whatever you want to call it, a revolution to be even more out there, there is a lot of risk involved and very high capital investment as well. So government should take on that role, because once government absorbs some of the risk, private sector feels more confident to then come in to sustain whatever has been done by government. So if we can build more cross-sector partnerships like that, where government absorb the risk or try to put in intervention to reduce risk, so private sector will come in to then sustain what has been built by the government, I think that's the way to go. That's 30,000 feet, let's bring it down a bit, more 10,000 feet. For example, a lot of private sector would not invest in social enterprise right now because they see social enterprise as too risky, they're too new, you know, track record is not there yet. Most of them are not making the millions or billions, you know, so why should we focus on them even? So if government can come in and say, put in, for example, a legislation, or say, you know, when the central bank put forward an insurance policy or whatever it is to reduce that risk for banks to start providing products and services like loans, soft loans or investment to social enterprises. We can see we're going to start seeing a lot of social enterprise grow fast and become more competitive as well. So that's just one example of how I think the role of government really is to try to facilitate that cross-sector partnership, try to reduce the risk, and then bring in the private sector to sustain the new sector that we need to pioneer towards a more inclusive economy and a more sustainable system as well.
Okay. My last question, Ehon. Youth, SDGs, social entrepreneurship, what connects? What connects the thread?
Wow. I think we see a very interesting generation. Because if you think about it, there was the world wars and the Great Depression and the famine in about 2 generations ago, and then there is the about 2 to 3 generations ago, and then there is the previous generation. So that I call that survival. That's all about that's all about survival. And then the last generation was very much about get a stable job, right? Go to university, but you must study law, account, finance, nursing, secretary, all this, teacher, to get a sustainable job. And that's very much about sustaining, right? Sustaining yourself to be able to then have enough money for your next generation. We're the first generation we get told about success. Doesn't matter about sustaining anymore because you can sustain. Your dad's generation has earned enough money so you can go on to do whatever you want, right? Go chase your dreams. So I think with that privilege of being able to realize our own potential comes with a responsibility. And that responsibility is really to ensure that whatever we end up doing is inclusive of the people who needs the support. They never have the privilege of even getting close to their potential. And these are the ones who are bottom of the pyramid, the ones who are currently still facing hunger, extreme poverty, and so on and so forth. So that's one. So as young people who are actually already above that line, we have the responsibility because we have the privilege already to support them. Secondly is we're going to be inheriting this planet. And we know that the planet is rapidly deteriorating at a rate that the planet cannot afford, right? So if we want a future, if we still want a home for ourselves and our future generation as youth, I can't say we anymore because I'm technically over the limit now. But we will pretend that I'm
in
still
Nepal,
youth.
you're still young.
Yeah, exactly. If we want to inherit this home, we have to ensure that all the right structure and foundation is in place so that we actually still have a home in, say, 50, 100 years' time, or even 200 years' time, either for ourselves or for our future generation. We know that life expectancy has increased, so I'm going to be living longer than the previous generations. So I better make sure that I have a home by the time that I retire or is in my old age. So we all have that collective responsibility to ensure that our planet is sustainable as well. So it's a no-brainer that youth has to be involved in decision making right now in order for us to have a future that's actually sustainable. Otherwise, we'll be inheriting a deteriorating planet, a country full of debt, with high public and private debt, and also 3 billion people in the world who are still not participating in the economy. So we should change that.
Well, thank you, Ehon,
for
joining us. Thank you for that. Well, and to quickly sum it up, spoke a bit about young people, the role that young people play with the Sustainable Development Goals, the role that young people play with social entrepreneurship, the role of MaGIC, of course, how does that fit in, governments, really this wonderful ecosystem that is in front of us, but also the challenges that young people face and what they can do about it. Is that fair?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah? All right. Ta-da!
Thank you.